I'm all right. Hell no. Joaquin said dominate, and we not doing it.
Steer from the 3. Streaks across the 30. He might be gone.
It's up. Gaston to the right. Oh,
they got blockers. They got blockers. They've got a lane.
Into the end zone. Touchdown, Miami. Darrell Langham with the grab.
Stars intercepted. Look out. Trajan Bandy, the true freshman. We got the truth again.
Because when the U is on and the U brings it, there's nothing like it. We got to get this. And it's going to take everybody.
All right, what's up, Canes fam? It is Thursday. You know what that means. It is time for a little opponent preview. And this week, it's different. It is Miami FSU week, and we are pleased to be joined by the official FSU podcast of the College Huddle. We've got Jesse here from Plant the Spear, ready to get us ready for the big rivalry, big game. Can't wait. In Doak Campbell, 7:30 on Saturday. Should be good. Jesse, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I am super pumped. Like, I know, you got the Florida rivalry. We had Bama this year and all that stuff. That's great. I circle this one every year. This is by far my favorite week of the year. I look forward to this every year. I try and go to as many Florida State Miami games as I can because, this one is, like you said, man, it's just different. It's just different between these two teams. So I'm looking forward to this one. I'm going to be heading down there on Friday, so I will actually be at the game. Nice. And like you said, man, sold out Saturday night. Doak's going to be rocking. Miami's a really good team. We haven't been ranked together in a while in a game since 2016 or in Doak since 2013. So, the stakes are high, and this is a historic rivalry. And I'm just really, man, I'm glad to see it back to where it means something because, we might have disdain for each other, but this game is so much better when both teams have something on the line. And so that's why I'm really, really excited for this year's game.
100%. Yep. It's two logos that college football is better when they're at the top, and then the rivalry speaks for itself. So the fact that this game means something this year as far as college football playoff implications, ACC championship implications, couldn't ask for much more. Bummed we didn't get game day there in Doak.
That's our
I know
fault.
there's a lot of, but also, like, even with the loss to Virginia, I still feel like it should have been game day. Like, what are we doing? Yeah. It's Miami FSU, 2 ranked. There's still so much on the line. Come on.
And you got an undefeated team and an undefeated team, and you guys are obviously ranked higher than Vandy. And then, you got 2 3-1 teams, and we beat their 3-1 team. One's a historic rivalry, and one's just an SEC conference game. Like, come on, y'all. What are you doing here? So, big drop of the ball by them. But, we got ACC game day. I think Corso is actually going to be honored at the game. So we got the good part of game day there. But, that was a little disappointment. But you know what? It is what it is, man.
Yep, for sure. All right, so before we get into it, just tell us a little bit about Plant the Spear podcast. How long have you been covering FSU football for? Kind of what got you started doing this show?
Yeah, so we started, I started in 2021. My first season was 2022. I've grown up an FSU fan my whole life. My brother actually used to go to FSU baseball camp when I was too young to go, so my dad would take me over to the stadium across the street. And, when you're 8-10 years old, Doak Campbell and Chief Osceola and Renegade just kind of get you in a chokehold. And so I was hooked for life. And then, I moved away from South Georgia, just north of Florida, up to the Charlotte area. And so I didn't really have a lot of my football buddies to talk to. And, it's funny. I actually had a Clemson fan come over, cable guy, to work on our internet one day. And we talked for probably an hour on the front porch just about football. And my wife's like, what are you doing, man? Just start the podcast, right? And so we started. 2022 is our first season, and it's been an awesome ride so far. Like, we're still small, we're still growing, but I just got to have my first credentialed experience at Virginia last week. Nice. Didn't go well in the end, but that was pretty cool. Just getting to meet a lot of people from the community like yourselves and made a lot of lifelong friends out of this. It's just been a great time, and we're just getting started.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. Congrats on the credential piece. That's really cool. So speaking on the Virginia piece, coming off your first loss of the season, Friday night against Virginia. It's one of those weird ACC Friday night games. I did see it was also the most watched ESPN Friday night game ever. So talking about the logo matters. But talk to me about that game. What were your thoughts on the loss, kind of takeaways from that, starting the season strong and then having that loss early? Walk me through that.
It was a real disappointment. I mean, clearly, like you didn't want to lose that game. Now, I had been saying for a couple weeks on our show, this has trap game written all over it. You're going on the road on a Friday night against the first team with a pulse you've played in 3 weeks, coming off East Texas A&M, a bye week in Kent State. You're on a short week with it being a Friday night. We hate non-Saturday games because they never work out in our favor. First trip on the road. And then you got Miami sitting on the other side of that. So I was like, okay, this is a trap game, man. And so you go up there, and I really do think, Tommy had said after the game where maybe we needed this because I think they had gotten a little bit big-headed after that Alabama win because this team, coming off last year, and a lot of these are new pieces, they haven't really had success. They won a little bit. People were kind of telling them they're good. You get that top 10 number by your name. Everything feels great. But it's like, man, you won one game. You haven't won anything. And so hopefully this serves as kind of the Alabama loss, right? Because look at what Alabama's done since they lost. So hopefully this serves as a gut check. But I think for Florida State fans after that Virginia game, you're just sitting here going, okay, who's the real Florida State, right? Because people love to talk about, act like the Alabama game never happened. It did. Like I sat in that stadium and watched us manhandle Alabama for 3.5 quarters. And so that's in there. Now I understand it's the first game of the season. There was some things with, Ty Simpson's first start, all that stuff. I understand that part too. But what you saw on the road at Virginia was a completely different team. Just so many mistakes, so many costly penalties, so many turnovers. I don't really take much away from the offense as bad, other than a few of the play calls I thought were pretty questionable. A couple of turnovers you'd like to see cleaned up, and the penalties. It was really the defense that was like, what happened? I mean, I expected Virginia to score some points because I think Virginia has a very underrated offense. Like people forget Chandler Morris was signed out of high school by Lincoln Riley, and he's got a pretty good history with quarterbacks. But at the same time, like we were just doing things that were uncharacteristic. Our linebackers really struggled to cover in space. We could not really generate a ton of pressure, or at least we couldn't finish. We tackled so unbelievably poorly in that game. We had 15 missed tackles in that game. And I hated the defensive game plan because we lined up really in a lot of soft zone coverage, and Virginia didn't do anything special. They were 0 of 5 on passes of 20 yards or more. But it was death by 1,000 paper cuts. They just took everything they could get. I think Morris's yards per completion was around like 6 yards per completion. So they were just hitting you with little stuff here and there. And in the back of my mind, I'm looking at this game and I'm like, that's exactly what Miami likes to do. So if you don't figure something out between there and here, you're going to get beat again in the same way. So hopefully it was a learning experience. But, I will say I think there was something to the road. There was something to the look ahead. There was something to the overlook in Virginia. But I also think there were some red flags exposed in that game. Like we do have a problem at edge. We do have a problem covering with our linebackers. So we're going to see on Saturday which was the real Florida State, whether that was what we saw against Alabama or Virginia. They played much better at home, but man, it was two different teams. And so which one is the real team? I feel more confused now than I did going into that game.
Right. Yeah. And the defense is obviously what stuck out to me. I think the defensive line kind of getting bullied by Virginia's offensive line. And so as a Miami fan, that made me feel pretty good about Miami's chances of being able to do what Miami does and run the football, kind of control the trenches. So, and you kind of hit on this, but do you think on that side of the ball, specifically with some of those weaknesses, it's a personnel issue? Like you just don't have the guys, scheme issue, or a little bit of both?
I think it's probably about 80-20 personnel, unfortunately, right? Like I think when you talk about the interior defensive line, a lot of people don't think Daryl Jackson, which is a name you guys are obviously familiar with. A lot of people
Still
don't
can't
think
believe he's playing.
I know, right? I know.
How long am I going to hear that name for?
Dude, he's like got to be like 35 with a mortgage about now. But I think people think he's not playing well, but they don't understand what he does in the 3-3-5. Like he's a block eater, and there are screenshots of that Virginia game where there are 3 offensive linemen triple teaming him. So he's doing his job. The problem is you need everyone else to do their job around them. The linebackers played relatively poor in that game. And then when you talk about just the defensive line, because, if he's eating blocks, you just need the linebackers to clean everything up behind you. But when you talk about personnel, right now we have a problem at edge. And we just don't have, we don't have a Jared Verse this year. James Williams was a transfer from Nebraska. He was literally the most productive pass rusher in the country at Nebraska last year, but he was a package player. And so we questioned, how was he going to be as a full-time starter? I mean, in theory, right now, he's been a bust. Like, there's no other way to say it. He can't set the run on or can't set the edge on a run play. And he really struggles to get pressure in the backfield, which is something that wasn't characteristic of him at Nebraska. Then on the other side, Jason Jenkins, he's been good for you, but he's coming off a major injury. He was rushed to get back against Alabama. He only played 15 snaps against Virginia, so I don't know that he's even healthy. And the thing that kind of points to personnel issues is Darrell Jackson is doing his job. He's pretty good. We got a couple of other guys in there that are pretty good on the defensive line. But right now, one of your probably top 3 defensive line is a 3-star freshman. Now, he has played extremely well for a freshman. But I think it's a little bit of personnel. But I also think when you talk scheme part, I think it's Tony White has to understand the personnel problems and try and make up for that, right? I think if you know you can't do some things that you can't do, you need to try and play a little bit more aggressive and sell out and try and help create that pressure, try to help stop the run. And you know what, man, if you get popped over the top with a long explosive play or something like that, it is what it is, man. But I would rather have that happen than death by 1,000 cuts. So you've got some personnel issues, but I think with the scheme, you can cover some of that up. It's just, will they do it? And I will say the last thing on the personnel is, this is why I'm so confused. Now, James Williams did not play well against Alabama either. Everyone else did. So where's the disconnect? And that's the hard part for us right now. And we're going to find out because, on Saturday night, we're going to face the best offensive line and best defensive line that we've seen so far this season.
Yeah. Yeah, but I agree with you that, and what kind of Castellanos pointed to is that it's better to have that have happened, I think, against Virginia to get exposed like that in the trenches and be like, okay, we now know what we have to at least try to fix. We don't know if we can, but we have to try, rather than Miami is what awakens that. So, yeah, I could see that being a positive takeaway. But all in all, you mentioned it, 2-10 last year. Like, it was just an all-time bad season
Brutal
for FSU. I can't imagine you doing this show going through that season.
It was tough.
And so what is, like, where do you point some of the credit to? There's a clear turnaround. I mean, FSU is way better than they were last year, regardless of the loss to Virginia. Just we all saw what happened week 1 against Alabama. We don't know what that means for the whole season, but just in that game is a huge win. So where do you give a lot of the credit to for the turnaround? Kind of what main pieces did you get in the portal? Obviously, Castellanos was a big one, and that makes a huge difference at quarterback. But kind of talk me through where you see a lot of the turnaround from last year.
Yeah, it's funny. I started this in 2022 when we won 10 games, and we had just come off a couple losing seasons. And I always joked, I was like, man, I'm glad I started this when I did, because we immediately got a 10-win season, then a 13-win season. I was like, ooh, I'm glad I missed that. 2-10. It was like, golly. So I have experienced like the high and the low of this, and it was tough after the losses were stacking up. But I think when you look back to 2-10, what really happened there is, one, I think you had some issues with like Mike Norvell and the way he kind of handled the end of the season there. The way that the way things unfolded with the playoffs and the Orange Bowl, and everybody kind of just left them hanging out to dry. I think there was some stuff there. And then they took a lot of backups from big name programs that weren't proven producers, right? Like a perfect example is going from Jared Verse, who was a dominant player at Albany. You bring him over here, he's proved he can produce, and he does that. Well, then you go get Marvin Jones Jr., no disrespect to him, but he was a backup at Georgia, and we kind of see why. Like, he just wasn't the same type of guy. But that was the story across the board. DJ Uyunglele, obviously a terrible take in the portal. He was also hurt, I think. He wasn't mobile at all. So many, I think, misevaluations. And then obviously we know like Florida State has not recruited at the level like a Miami and a Florida have. So it was kind of I equated it almost like to Three Little Pigs, right? You had kind of built your house out of more straw and sticks than bricks. So whenever the transfers didn't work out, you hadn't recruited well enough to support that. But then I think this year, and I also think there should have been some staff changes on that team, but it's hard to justify when you just won 13 games. So I think the biggest change this year starts with coaching. I mean, you bring in Gus Malzahn, a guy who's won a national championship as an offensive coordinator. Whether you think his success is behind him or not, we went from Alex Atkins, who was an offensive line coach at Charlotte before this. So that's a massive upgrade. He's now at LSU as a run game coordinator. They can't run the ball. So like that's a clear weakness there. Tony White, I think, is a better high caliber defensive coordinator. But then the transfers are a big part, at least on offense so far from what we've seen. The defense, I think a lot of it, you've had most of your homegrown talent, or some of the transfers have been hit or miss. But on the offense, obviously you talked about Tommy. He was big. Deuce Robinson, 6'6" wide receiver from USC.
Yeah, guy's
That's
a
been a big
beast.
addition. Squirrel White is one that he had a really big catch against Alabama. I know he's been banged up, but he's been kind of quiet since. Didn't really do anything against Virginia, so he's one I'm looking to step up because he has the speed. But really, I think it all starts up front. We took 4 transfers on the offensive line. They were all graduate or all redshirt seniors. They've all been starters where they came from. You get Richie Leonard back from injury. That offensive line was probably the worst in the country last year. And then you paired it with a quarterback who was inaccurate and couldn't run, and it just led to disaster. So I think an upgrade in coaching, a rebuilt offensive line, a quarterback who can actually move has been the biggest reason for the turnaround so far. Now, again, we've won 1 game against a Power 4 opponent, so we'll see how this goes forward. But, I mean, they do look night and day better. I think the culture's been flipped too. We saw a lot of quit with that team last year. So those are the biggest things. And just hopefully it carries forward. And then hopefully, let's say we do lose on Saturday night. Now, how do you respond to back-to-back losses? So that's the thing. How does this team respond this Saturday? Because it does look better, but, they've just hit their first bit of adversity.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. So speaking of this Saturday, and this is the most broad question I could possibly ask, and it's a very basic one, but FSU wins this game if fill in the blank.
I love that question because I actually ask everybody that on our show when they come on.
Good. Yeah, it's easy.
It's easy, yeah. And the thing is, we just recorded an hour and a half Miami preview yesterday. That's going up on the channel today. So we like, if no one's ever watched our channel, we dig under every single rock to find everything we can. So I think for Florida State to win this game, I think first off, let's just start with offense. I think you have to try and run the ball, right? Miami has not given up 100 yards on the ground to a single team this season. Florida actually had like 101, but they sacked DJ 5 times. That put it under 100. So you're going to have to run the ball. Let's face it, this is Gus Malzahn's offense. You run it 65% of the time. If you get held under 100 yards and Tommy has to throw it 50 times, you're going to lose. There is no doubt about it, because really our pass game is throw it deep to Deuce. That's pretty much about it. So you have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to protect Tommy against a really good defensive line. And I think you have to stay in this game for 4 quarters because, we were looking it up, and both of Miami's edge rushers, who are amazing guys, played every single snap against Florida, and they played all but like 12 snaps against Notre Dame. So I also think you need to try and push the tempo and get the snap count up there. If you can get mid-70s to 80 snaps, there's only so much. I mean, they're great NFL future, probably first-round draft picks, but there's only so much gas in the tank when you're that big of a human being. And so I think you need to push tempo. You need to try and run the ball. And then on defense, you're going to have to do something that nobody in the country has been able to do so far, and that's to pressure Carson Beck. I mean, you look at this offensive line. Obviously, Miami is one of the best offensive lines in the country. They've been great at pressuring him so far. But when you talk about Carson Beck, and I will say at least this, my wife's a Georgia fan, my family are Georgia fans, so I've been watching Carson Beck for 2 years at Georgia. You got to do the impossible of getting back there and pressuring him, because when he's under pressure, he's not that great. And I think we saw that against Florida, right? He kind of looked more like what we saw at Georgia. He still only faced 6 pressures in that game. Like, he's only faced 17 pressures all season long. And so if you let him sit back there, he's going to pick you apart because he gets the ball out fast. But when you look at when you've been able to get pressure on him, and for those wondering, for reference, Florida State did have 19 pressures, 3 sacks against Alabama, 15 pressures, 2 sacks against Virginia. Well, when you look at Carson Beck throughout his career, he's had 6 games at Georgia where he's faced double-digit number of pressures. Now, he's only faced 17 this season, no more than 6 in any game. So no one has been able to do it. But in those 6 games where he had at least double-digit pressures, he's thrown 6 touchdowns, 11 picks, and taken 14 sacks. You have got to find a way to get pressure. I don't care if it means selling out. I don't care what it means. You have got to try and get pressure on him. And so I think if you do that, and then the second key for defense is that going to wrap somebody up this week. Like, you can't have 15 missed tackles. You do that, and I think you got a pretty good chance. Because when you look at this Miami team, and I'll just say this from like my perspective, from the outward looking in, the clear thing to me about Miami this year, this is not last year's number one offense in the country with Cam Ward, right? We've seen them, that Florida game was 13-7 with 4 minutes left in the game. So I think Miami's offense is very efficient and they're very good, but they also are now paired with a really, really good defense. So I think for Florida State, you're going to have to try and outscore obviously to win the game, you got to outscore them, but you're going to have to try and outscore that offense because I think our defense is going to give up some scores. But that's not last year's offense, but that's also not last year's defense. So can you put up points on that defense? And, again, I think the crowd factor being in Doak, this is Miami's first time away from home. It's funny, and I'll throw it back to you on this, but it's funny when you look at what Florida State walked into on Friday night in Charlottesville. You had a very confident team going against an opponent who had already lost a game, feeling pretty good about yourself. Friday night, less than a touchdown spread on the road, first road game. Miami's not on a short week, they're on a bye week, but now look at Miami. You're less than a touchdown favorite. You're probably feeling pretty confident about yourself after Florida State lost. I've already seen, I think Ruben Bain, tweeted at some of FSU's players or something like that.
Yep, he's a talker.
First road game at night in a sold-out stadium.
Yeah.
This is why they play the games on Saturdays. So, man, I think just the road factor will help Florida State. But it's going to be a monumental challenge because this Miami team is good on both sides of the ball this year.
Yeah, 100%, though. It's a great point, I think, that people need to realize about this being a road game for Miami. It's not the ideal first road game you want for this team. Feel good about it from Carson Beck. He's played in some crazy environments, but overall, it's a huge test for Miami to be able to have their first road trip in a hostile environment like that.
Yeah, but I mean, and you look at, everyone talks about Florida State, it was first off, it was a double overtime loss against a now ranked Virginia team. It's not like we got wiped off the field, but look at all the ranked teams that lost last week. You had a ton of ranked teams that not only did they win or lose, some of them won, like Georgia Tech almost lost to Wake Forest in overtime. Probably should have lost that game. It's hard to go on the road. Miami was 10-3 last year, every loss away from Hard Rock. So it's I think it just makes a really big difference, and I think it had a lot to do with what we saw on Friday night.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, so on our show, we do a segment called Eye of the Hurricane where we spotlight a single player that we are that we need to have a big game in order to win. FSU, what would it be? Spear of the Seminole Award, I guess.
That works. That works.
All right. So what player specifically are you spotlighting that you need to have a big game in order to help FSU win this?
Man, the first one that really comes to my mind is going to be Earl Little Jr., right? We saw him be a dominant force against Alabama. Now, that was his old team, so he was hyped up. He was ready to go. He made a ton of big plays against them, and he had a really bad game against Virginia. He had a missed tackle that ended up turning into a touchdown. He had a critical penalty as well that extended a Miami drive, a Virginia drive. I think he is our rover safety. So he is the kind of the field general in the middle of the field on the defense. And I really think you got to have a great game from him to be able to stop Miami. I mean, on offense, I would say if you want all five up front, all five, or really even more specifically, your two offensive tackles, because they are in for a challenge. They better pack a lunch because those defensive ends are legit. So, man, that would be my top three. Our two offensive tackles have got to hold up, and Earl Little Jr. needs to have a great day on defense or else we might be in trouble.
Okay, I like it. So give me your final prediction here. What do we think? Right. We play this on Saturday for a reason, like you said.
Yeah.
We know all the stuff on paper, but I need final prediction, expectations for this game.
So I think when I look at this game, right, and I'm gonna publish our preview here in just a second. So I'll put the score out there. I don't hold anything back. I don't need to hold anything back. So I think for Florida State, when you look at this game on Saturday night, I think they know the challenge that's ahead. I think they understand what it means because if you talk about for Florida State, if you win this game, that Virginia loss doesn't matter, if we're being honest. You got 2 top 10 wins. You're right back in the thick of things for the playoffs. If you lose this game, you're in trouble because now the Bama, the good news from Bama is gone, right? That the goodwill from Bama has flown out the window. Now you've lost 2 games in a row. You would need your at-large bid is probably tanked. You probably need some help to get to Charlotte. So this game means a lot aside from the rivalry factor. But I do think Florida State will bounce back in this game. I just need to see them come out and play like their hair is on fire, like they did against Alabama, because they did not do that against Virginia. But I think this team has been so much better at home, and the road aspect for Miami. My co-host, he picked you guys to win. I will say that he went ahead and picked. He said, "I'm not confident after what I saw against Virginia." For me personally, I do think Miami is a really good team on both sides of the ball. I also look back at the schedule, and on our show, I throw out FCS games or like bad G5 teams because you should beat them anyway. I look at the Notre Dame game. Miami played well in that game. Notre Dame almost came back. It was CJ Carr's first start. Jeremiah Love, they forgot he was even on the roster apparently because they forgot to use him. Both games have been at home. The Florida game is the one where I really went, okay, I think we got a chance, right? Because Florida's offense is just dumpster juice. Like, it is so unbelievably bad. 8.5 points per game against Power 4 defenses. That's worse than our offense last year. And so I think you saw a human element from Miami in that game. And so I think coming home with a gut punch of a loss on the road at Virginia, I'm picking with my heart, not my head here, but I think Florida State bounces back with the home environment and gets it done 31-27 in a great game.
Okay. Oh gosh, my heart can't take it. But hey, no, we pick with our heart all the time on the show. I don't know if we've ever picked Miami to lose a game in the last 5 years, and that they lost a lot in the last 5 years.
I did pick us to lose against Alabama. I felt bad about it, but
I
was timid after 2-10. I think if this game was in Hard Rock, I doubt I would pick us to win.
Yeah.
But I just think, man, that first road trip is tricky. You know what I mean? Carson Beck's a very experienced quarterback, but it's going to be loud in there on Saturday night. And so I think that pushes us over the top. But, this is a rivalry game. Like, we've traded a couple blowouts recent years, but every game usually comes down to one score. So I think regardless, we are in for a thriller on Saturday night.
Yeah, I even think back to 2 years ago, Miami playing at Doak, and FSU was clearly the way better team, but it was a fight. Like, that's just what happens in these rivalry games. I think this game, the spread opened at 4.5, jumped all the way to 6.5 Miami. It's back, I think, to 4.5. So people are expecting a close game. I agree with your score. I would just flip it, obviously.
Yeah.
But 31-27 Canes, I love that. All right. Bonus question here before I let you go, Jesse. This has been great. Really appreciate you coming on. You obviously really know your FSU football, so this has been extremely helpful for us. I know Miami fans will get a lot of good stuff out of this. But bonus question, favorite Miami FSU rivalry memory that you have?
Oh, man. So obviously there's so many, from the big hits to the big names to the big wins. This was a de facto national championship play-in game for many years before the playoffs got here. But for me, my favorite FSU memory from a personal standpoint was I was at the 2013 game in Doak Campbell Stadium. And I still talk about that game 12 years later, which is why I'm excited for Saturday night, because that was the last time we both played as ranked teams in Doak Campbell Stadium. And when I tell you I've been in some pretty big games, national championship included. I have never been to a college football environment that crazy. And it was not just Florida State. There was a lot of Miami fans there too, and they were making a lot of noise. Yeah, man. I mean, that was
nuts.
One of the craziest environments I've ever been to. I was at 2023 as well. I'm 2-0 in Miami games, and I'm going to be there on Saturday night. So I don't know if that's good for y'all or not, but for me, the favorite memory is just, man, the experience of what you feel on Saturday night in that game in a packed stadium. It's going to be an awesome, awesome environment, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, I'm with you there. It is, as much as I hate Doak Campbell, you can't help but love it too. You can't help but respect it. It's a great atmosphere, and this is what college football is all about, so should be great. Well, Jesse, I really appreciate you coming on. Everyone, make sure to give Plant the Spear, give that their main show that they are dropping this week, give that a listen as they do a deep dive into this game. And shout out to the College Huddle for putting this together, getting us connected. Let's just hope for a good game Saturday. Slight Miami victory. I don't want I don't want you to be too sad, but
I always tell everybody I wish you luck the rest of the season, but not in this game.
Not in this game. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jesse, appreciate you having on. Everyone, hope you have a great rest of your week. Looking forward to Saturday, 7:30, prime time. No game day, but we got ACC huddle. They call that the game day junior, I guess.
Game day light.
Yeah, should be good. All right, everyone, go Canes.
Hearing that sound.